evening, good morning, good afternoon, or whatever way.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
I wanted to start this episode, Joshua, by commenting on your hair.
Okay.
We're talking in a week that hairdressers have reopened, and I've only spotted this. I spotted this as soon as you logged on, and I thought I'd save it for the audio.
You thought you embarrassed me on air. Go on then.
What on earth is going on? You've got this sort of top knot, Gareth Bale-esque look.
I do. You are absolutely right.
Is that a chosen fashion style, or is it you just run out of things to do with your hair?
Apparently, it's fashionable. So I hadn't had my hair cut for 5 months, like most of the population, and it grew. And I thought, you know what? I'm probably never going to grow my hair again.
Yeah.
So when I went to get it cut on Monday, I said to Ben, a fantastic hairdresser, I said, Ben, can you keep it long but make it stylish? And he said, Josh, we can't make you stylish whatever we do, but we'll try and make your hair look all right. So I've got this sort of a little...
So you've actually paid for that?
Yeah, I have.
Wow. And I was just sorry, you may have seen us on my phone, not listeners couldn't see, but I was looking on my phone to see how old Gareth Bale is, and he's 31. And
there you go. It's good to be in such esteemed company.
How old are you? 37? 38? Because I'm 37 and you're older than me.
No, I'm the same, yeah.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm more mature
so you're
than you.
6... Well, I'm not sure. I'm not one with the top knots. So I don't know. Anyway, good luck. What does your wife think of it?
Yeah, she thinks it's all right. It's my mum that's got the problem with it.
Yeah.
She saw a picture and I was on the phone to her. Joshua, cut your hair. I said, Mum, I'm almost 40 and you're telling me what to do with my hair. I think, come on, let's move on a bit.
Have you been meeting clients with it?
What, just walking backwards towards it? No, we're not doing face-to-face meetings yet, so they haven't seen my hair yet.
Yeah. Great. I'm one of your clients, actually, so I guess that counts. But I'm now leaving because I can't take you seriously. I'm not really leaving.
I'm probably going to attract a completely different clientele now.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, let's talk about you. What's that you've got in your hair?
Thank you.
It looks like, I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of wax.
You've been frying eggs on it or something.
Yeah, you're right. And I need to get it cut. And when it dries, it sort of goes into what Danielle, my wife, describes as a nutty professor look, which I kind of, in some ways, am embracing. And in other ways, I do think I should go to a hairdresser, but I don't see the point in just queuing with all these people. I'll just wait until it dies down. Or did you go on Monday?
I did, but I booked it in advance. I'm not queuing. Do we ever queue?
Yeah.
Really? What else is news, Mark?
Not a lot. That's the main things, really. Excited about pub gardens. Have you been to a pub garden yet? They've reopened now.
I haven't been to one yet. No, have you? I'm waiting for you to ask me out.
Do you want to go out?
I'd love to.
It's just tricky because there's not really. I don't know whether there's any around here. Well, there are a few near where we live.
Yeah, you tell me where and when I'll need to be there.
Okay, I'll let you know. Wear a hat.
Wash your hair.
For this episode, we discussed in advance, we would talk about being self-employed. There's been a little bit of that in the news at the moment because obviously a lot of people have lost their jobs, unfortunately, during the pandemic. And there have been a few surveys and official bits of data that have suggested that many have turned to starting their own business. And I think at the end of last year, there was an increase in the number of companies registered at Companies House. And a lot of people have had to start out on their own because they've had no choice, because they've lost, as we said, they've been made redundant or have had to boost their income. And being self-employed is something, well, in many ways, both of us chose to do voluntarily many years ago.
Yeah, if I knew now, if I knew then, what I knew now.
I don't know if it would be interesting to discuss that, because a lot of people may be considering making the jump.
Yes, so tell me, Mark.
Yeah.
Why did you change from employed to self-employed? Because obviously this is a personal finance podcast, but sometimes you got to strip back the finance and talk about the personal side of it. So what made you go from employed to self-employed?
Well, I used to work for a personal finance website called This Is Money on a regular full-time basis, and they are based in Kensington, and that was a bit of a trek to get to every morning, and often trains were delayed, and so it just got a bit stressful always being late. And then we started having children, and then you had to balance commuting with dropping off.
You say we
at
started
nurseries.
having children, that makes it sound like it's a regular occurrence. They were
Well, it was
just
for
appearing
about
every
2
day.
years. Yeah, we had one child and then another
Okay.
over a 2-year period, 3-year anyway. So it gave me more flexibility, so I could work from home and be my own boss and not worry about train timetables and a leaf on the line.
Okay, so let me pick that not apart, because that sounds like you said something wrong. Let me just sort of probe a bit.
Okay.
So the bit about the journeys and the train time.
Yeah.
So now having worked for yourself and at home the last couple of years.
5 years now, actually.
5 years, blimey. Do you think is that a positive for the journey side of it?
I definitely think not having to commute has reduced a lot of the stresses involved with work. So often you'd arrive at work huffing and puffing and just annoyed because you didn't get a seat, or you'd be standing for half an hour. It's cold and wet. Whereas as someone running my own enterprise, I can just get up and walk into my study. Obviously not everyone has that benefit. Some people may still be self-employed and have to travel to places, but
Yeah.
For me it gives me more freedom to start work when I need to.
Okay. And
Don't
what
have to worry
about with the pandemic? So a lot of people will still be employed but no longer have a commute. So do you think if you were now still working for like the This Is Money, you'd say actually, well, I might as well still be employed?
I think that's an interesting point.
That's why I said it.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of my ex-colleagues now are just working from home. But I think another benefit of being self-employed is you're free to do a variety of things. So you're not just pigeonholed. You're not just stuck with one publication or one type of work. So I can diversify, do different things.
Yeah.
I can don't have to feel so guilty if I need to stop working for a couple of hours to go to a sports day for my daughters, or if I need to look after them if they're ill.
Tell us a bit about
you
said you can do what you not pigeonholed and work on you want. So often, I mean, on this podcast, you don't often talk about your work. So what are the different areas that you work on?
Well, I class myself as a personal finance journalist, so I mainly write
very loosely, I assume, when you say that.
Very, thank you. I write regularly for The Sun, the iPaper, Interactive Investor. I'm just name dropping some names.
Yeah, go for it. It's good for people to
know. About things like mortgages, pensions, investments, insurance. But beyond that, I also do corporate work. So investment platforms or property companies will call me up and say, we need to write a report, or we need some help with media strategy. Do you know anyone who knows about journalism? And I'll say, no, but I can help you. So that's sort of like a consultancy type thing, or communications content.
So what modern language you hear a lot of? I'm a content writer.
Yeah, I don't.
Content creator. Is that what you are?
I don't like calling myself a content creator because it sounds a bit airy fairy.
Okay.
Which I'm sure that's going to offend a lot of people.
You got to move with the times.
Yeah, but content is such a generic term. I like to think of myself as a specialist. So my specialism is finance. Although I have written about other bits. I've written about sport, Jewish stuff. I used to work for Jewish News.
Yeah.
LGBT issues.
Okay. So the other thing you said was about the flexibility in your time. So you can go into a sports day or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
What would you say? And we're not talking finances yet. We're still on the personal side of it.
Yeah.
What would you say are the downsides of being self-employed?
Well, you get a lot of benefits in the workplace like pensions. You
Yeah.
get a regular payday. Sorry, we've gone into finances.
No, it's okay.
So you've got to manage your money better. Well, not better, but more efficiently, so you know how much you're going to be paid, and you probably spend a lot of time chasing payments to make sure you're paid on time, if at all.
Yeah.
So your money's always going to come in at the same time. There's no payday. So you got to budget for that. Yeah, no pension, no other benefits like at some places may get free work drinks. I've got to go and pay for my own drinks.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous. If I'm sick, I have to be sick. If I'm sick, I don't get sick pay.
If you're sick, you have to be sick. I mean, this is our content creator here.
I do a lot better with written word as far as podcast struggles. And yeah, it's just essentially time is very much money. If you're not working, you're not earning. Whereas if you are in an employed role, you can have holiday, you can be paid to be off sick, and you can have an off day while you're at work. You can just sit in the office, and in some cases you may just be able to coast along and do the minimum.
Did you do that regularly?
No. No. That's very mean. No.
It was 3 no's, so that's a yes.
No, I mean, there were days where you'd have a big night out before, and you'd come in hungover, and you just spent a lot of the day joshing around. We should look into where the phrase "joshing around" comes from.
Yeah, trademark.
Have I just made that up? Yeah. Another aspect of being self-employed is I think it can help you make more money if you work hard enough. Because one of the things with journalism is it's not the most well-paid sector. You've got to get up really high to get the big bucks, and obviously there's only so many editor positions, or you've got to go into other aspects of content or PR and marketing, which is where the big bucks are. So being self-employed means you can take on a variety of different projects and do several jobs at the same time, which is what I'm doing currently. And in some ways it's good because I know I have a good chunk of cash coming over the next few months, but it also means I'm working night and day. So you've got to balance that as well. And then the tax as well. You can, if you structure yourselves in certain ways, you can end up paying less tax.
A lot of people wouldn't know what to do. How did you know how to go and find clients, how to get started?
That's something that's often I've wondered, because I don't know if I know some people who started out, came out of university and then immediately became a freelance journalist, and I think that's because they had the gift of the gab and they were good at networking and building contacts. And just because a lot of what I do is you have to come up with an idea yourself and pitch a story, and you can pitch it one week to an editor who'll say yes, and the next week they may just have no interest at all. And you've got to be doing that with loads of publications at the same time to get a decent amount of income. So the main way I've managed to do that, I think, is because I built up a track record. So I'd worked in journalism for 10, 12 years before I went freelance, and built up a good book of contacts. A lot of my mates now who I trained with and worked up through the ranks with have now become editors themselves, so it's quite easy for me to, not easy, but I'm not as worried about just emailing them and saying, oh, will you take this commission? Are you interested in any pictures? Whereas when I first started, it was this big scary world of a lot of editors who I'd never spoken to or met before.
Yeah.
And I had to approach them cold. But then I sort of generated some of those relationships.
Okay.
You've got to be confident, and you've got to get yourself out there.
And so if we talk about the finances a bit,
yeah,
how did it feel going from a secure salary, so you knew what was coming into your bank account every month, to zero, I guess, when you first started?
It's scary. And one of the best tips I've read somewhere, or maybe I've made it up, is don't make the jump until you can see that you've got the income coming in. And so what I was doing was, while I was at This Is Money, I was already starting to do freelance stuff so that I knew I could generate the income. So I started doing a radio show with Share Radio, and I did a couple of other projects for an accountancy. So I could see income was coming in, and once we got to a point where I knew that was enough, I could make the jump, and I lost the fear of potentially not being able to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
And
so when you first started, was were your earnings comparable to your employed earnings, or did you have to work your way up to get
they were
back?
They were comparable initially, although after about 6 months or a year, one of those regular so when I started, I had about 3 regular projects or gigs which gave me enough income to match what I had as an employed person. But then I lost one of those after about a year, and there was a bit of a panic there because I thought, well, what am I going to do? I'm not going to have the amount of income I wanted. But I didn't give up, and I was resilient and found other roles. And I think that helps motivate you, this fear of not being able to pay the mortgage and not being able to feed your children. It helps you.
Yeah, you can always come round for a meal if you need it. Well, the kids can, and you can stay at home. One of the things you need to think about when you are setting up on your own is you need to decide on the legal form you're going to operate under. So you could be a sole trader, which basically just means you work for yourself. You could start a limited company.
Yeah.
Well, those are probably the 2 main methods. So how did you decide what route to go down?
So I went down a limited company route. So that means I'm responsible for preparing annual accounts, and then I have to pay corporation tax on my company's profits, and then also I can take a little bit of a salary that I pay income tax on. The benefits for me on that was, the way you can take income, it can work out more tax efficiently, because if you can pay yourself in dividends, and there's you can get £2,000 of dividends tax free, and then I've made my wife a shareholder, and she can also use her £2,000 allowance. So that gives me £4,000 I can take for tax, and then you can use your personal tax allowances, and
yes, I mean that's a good point. So if we slow down a second there, so every individual is allowed to take or to earn £2,000 worth of dividends before they have to start paying tax, or they can have £2,000 tax free for dividends. And you can also earn £12,500 in your income before you pay income tax. So you got 14,500 there potentially, don't you, before you got to start paying tax? And if you're sharing that, I know your wife has another job, but if you were sharing that with a spouse or a partner, that's sort of £28,000, £29,000 that you could earn before you start paying any tax.
I mean, we don't do it like that because she does have another job where that makes her a higher rate taxpayer, but we use her dividend allowance, and then I'm just careful about balancing how much money I take as salary. And you just have to think about at what point you're taking money, and your accountant sort of helps with that, because they'll say, oh, this is how much you've got left to take this year. You can use your dividend allowance, or if you take this much more, you're going to be charged this much income tax.
I guess with the salary, what a lot of the accountants will focus on is the national insurance.
Yes.
Because if you keep your salary to it's roughly about £9,000 a year, you don't have to pay any national insurance on it. Whereas if you go above it, you start paying the national insurance. So most accountants will say take a small salary and take the rest as dividends, because also the dividends there's lower level of income tax on them. And there's also what you've got to remember: if you're a sole trader, you have to notify HMRC basically when you become self-employed, and you've got to do a tax return every year, which is a bit of a pain. So you can either do that yourself, or you can get an accountant to do that for you.
And
I think if you get an accountant to do it, a basic tax return, you probably pay about £200 or £300. But you also then have to, when you've notified HMRC, you've got to start paying national insurance contributions for self-employed. So as a sole trader, you pay Class 2 national insurance contributions on your income, which this tax year is £3.05 a week. But if you earn below 6,500, you don't pay any of it. Then there's also Class 4 national insurance contributions, which this tax year, so just in case you're not listening live, because you can't, because it's a podcast, so we're in the 2021-2022 tax year. That's 9% of your profits between 9,000 and 50,000, and 2% on your profits above that. You've also got to think about VAT, don't you?
Well, once you earn above, is it 80,000 or something?
Yeah,
Your profits.
if you've got turnover above £85,000, then you've got to register for VAT.
I would love turnover above £85,000 away. Maybe I wouldn't if I don't want to pay VAT.
Okay, well there you go. So, but that is something you've got to think about, because if you've worked out your fee structure with your clients, and let's just pick a round number. Let's say your fee is £1,000 for a piece of work, and then suddenly you get to £85,000, and your accountant says, right, now you've got to register for VAT. You've now got to charge £1,000 plus VAT.
Yeah.
So the cost to your clients is now £1,200 rather than £1,000. So it is something you need to consider at the outset. Even if it might be a while till you hit that £85,000. And obviously it depends what you're doing. Some people are going to hit it straight away just for the nature of what they're doing, and some people will need to build up and get to that level.
And there's corporation tax.
Yeah, so you've got to pay. So if you're a limited company, you've got to pay currently 19% tax on your company profits.
Yeah.
And remember, those company profits are before you've taken dividends. So the dividends come out after tax.
Yes.
Let's go back to... Go on.
One of the other reasons I like, or is beneficial for me, I think particularly as a journalist, but there's probably other professions, the benefit of being a limited company is it separates my personal and professional life. Because as a journalist, there's a risk of me doing legally risque things that could land me in trouble. I could get sued for libel, or well, that's the main risk as a journalist. And if I were fined or something, it's the company that's liable rather than my personal life. So there's no risk to my mortgage, or my house can't be taken away. Whereas if I was a sole trader, that my home could be at risk if I'm in financial trouble through my business.
Yeah. Yes, because the company is a separate legal entity. Company is a person, basically, who's responsible. But you do need to make sure you have some sort of professional indemnity insurance, so that if you are negligent, or I don't know what you would call it in your field, I guess in my field it would be negligent if you give bad advice, but so you need to make sure you've got insurance, so that if you do have a big cock up, and thank God we've never had that, but if you do, that you are covered for that. I'm assuming you've got something in place.
I do.
Good. What about, we spoke about the taxes. So I think some good advice for anyone who is starting out as self-employed is to remember you will get a tax bill at some point. Probably not until about 18 months after you start. So what I recommend to most of my clients is, when you get paid each month, take a percentage of that and put it aside in a savings account that you can't touch. That's your tax account.
Yeah, because I saw you tweeted something about this. There was a musician who complained that they had this big tax bill that they had to pay from a year before during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Whereas if they'd been saving, like you said, the amount that they'd earned, if they'd taken a portion of that as tax, it wouldn't have been a problem, because they would have had. And that's what I've done since the beginning. You take your...
Anyone would think you've got a good financial advisor.
Well, I think it was my accountant who told me to do that. But
anyone would think you've got a good accountant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you've got to do is, and you're right, I put something about it on LinkedIn recently.
Yeah.
So if your corporation tax bill is going to be 19%, what I normally advise is, each time you get some income, put 19% into your company savings account, because that'll be more than you need. So if you're putting 90% of your turnover, you're going to end up with more than you need, because remember, your tax is paid after expenses.
Yeah.
So you're going to have your tax money there, and a little bit of savings start building up as well. And also, same with your self-employed as a sole trader. If you're taking money out of your business, depending on what level you are, you probably want to put 20, 30, 40, 50% of that in a separate account for your tax bill. That way you don't have to scrabble about to find it. You're not always chasing it, saying I've got to earn more next year to pay last year's tax bill.
Yeah. Although saying that, I do, because I obviously have to do self-assessment as well for the salary I take.
Yeah.
And I do still find myself scrambling around for that, because it seems harder to work out your income.
Sam says great accountant. He hasn't sorted it out for you.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest you do, we probably had a conversation at some point, but if one is a 40% taxpayer, let's say a higher rate taxpayer, and you're not, and I say 40%, but if it's dividends, it's a bit lower, and if you're earning more, it's a bit higher. But each time you take money out of your business, put 40% of that into a savings account. So that is your personal tax account. So if you take out £1,000 a month, put 400 of that into a savings account. So at the end of the year, when you get your tax bill, you've got that covered. Plus, hopefully, again, a little bit more as well.
Okay. Can we talk about you? I thought we were going to talk about both of us and self-employment.
Okay, go on, talk about it.
Well, because I mean, we're getting towards half an hour, which is probably a good limit. But I thought it'd be interesting because you technically, well, do you count as self-employed if you now run? You used to be. Let's talk about where are we going? You used to work for an accountancy and then stopped, and joined or started working for the orchard practice, which my understanding was it was your father-in-law's business. But now you seem very much in charge. Large and in charge.
So I left Deloitte.
Yeah.
A nice secure salary, a great company.
Yeah.
And I was manager, so that's sort of middle of the road. I left to be completely self-employed as a sole trader.
Yeah.
So at that point, Malcolm, my father-in-law, he was also acting as a sole trader, working on his own. He said to me, I mean, I'll shorten the story, but we maybe go into more detail another time. But he basically said, come and work here. I'm not going to pay you anything, though. That's nice. Yeah. I mean, after all I've done for you. So I was a sole trader as I started out. And as I started to grow and earn money, so it's very different for me because mine was a career change. So I couldn't start doing freelance work or things like you do. I had no experience. So I was a sole trader, and in my first year, I earned like half of what I was earning the previous year. I had to build myself back up again.
So was that scary?
I wouldn't say it was scary. It was a big step, and I had to be confident in myself. I had to believe in myself, which I did. And I knew I was probably going to earn less. But when I did it, I decided that if I'm going to make this change, now was the time to do it. I didn't have kids at that point. My mortgage was manageable, so we worked out that we'd still be able to pay it for a while if I had reduced earnings. We had some savings, and Mrs. G was earning. So I wouldn't say it was scary, but it was a lot of pressure to work hard and get to the level I want to be. And that, like you said, that's probably a lot of motivation. If you don't work hard, you're not gonna earn. And then after, I don't know if it was a year or 2 years, became a limited company. And I am large and in charge, as you say.
And you have another interesting aspect because, I mean, technically now you're running a family business.
Yeah.
Because you work with your father-in-law and your wife.
Yeah, so we're actually finalists for Family Business of the Year award.
I've queued that up for you.
Thank you.
So how do you get to be a finalist for that, other than running a family business?
Yeah, you've got to tolerate your family is the biggest challenge. I don't know how it came on our radar, and we were told to enter, and we did, and now we are finalists. And there's two categories. There's one that the judges decide on based on the analysis they do and the entries you fill in and everything. And there's also a People's Choice Award. So if anyone does want to vote for the Orchard Practice, you can just go on our Facebook, Twitter or LinkedIn, and you'll see the link there. if you're listening to this after the decision has been announced, thank you for support, and I'm sorry we didn't win it this year.
I think in previous episode we've talked about the slow clap and what I have when I've lost awards.
I remember that. Yeah.
I'll teach you that. There must be challenges to running a family business, because I have been working at home and my wife's been here, and I find that challenging enough. But and she doesn't work. We don't work together. But even just working in the same house has its challenges.
There are a lot
of
challenges. Let's do a separate podcast on that, because we could be here a while. There are a lot of challenges. I think it's a good topic to discuss at some point, actually.
All right.
We don't want to. It's probably worth ending it there because of the time. But I'm happy to talk about it maybe in another episode about my experiences of employed to self-employed and everything, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Well, it's good Mark, I enjoyed hearing about that. It's nice of you to share your experiences. I want to set us a challenge, Mark, if you're up for it.
Okay.
I hadn't told you about this before, but I'd like us to get some our listeners to leave some reviews, and I'd like to challenge ourselves to try and get the number of reviews as the same as the number of episodes. So, is this episode 54?
I think so.
So we've got 28 reviews on there. Yeah. And I think if anyone's listening, whether this is your first episode or your 54th episode, it'd be really great if you can leave a review, positive or negative, because we want to know what you like, what you don't like, and it makes our jobs more enjoyable to hear from you. Are you up for the challenge, Mark?
Yeah, and if anyone who leaves a review, you can get a free photo of Josh and his top knots.
They won't leave it now. You've blown it.
Yeah. Is that all we have time for then?
That's great. Yeah.
Great.
Speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.